Welcome, Saints fans, to another edition of Saints TV Live. I hope you're all well on this Monday night, coming off the back of an 85-point shellacking to the Brisbane Lions. That felt weird saying that. 85 points just seems like a very jarring loss. So yeah, disappointing result. Alana, how are you?
Yeah, look, not great after that shit show.
That's sugarcoating it, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been like thinking there's a chance we could lose by sort of 9 goals to get pumped, but to go and lose by 85 was just beyond disappointing, especially after the sort of the second half of this year where we'd sort of been building momentum nicely, I thought, and then to dish that out. I was like, I don't know, did Burns spread his illness throughout the group? Because that's all I've got. Don't know
Yeah,
what
it
else.
was it was it was very disappointing. AJ is speechless over the result. It was pretty shocking. Um, Yeah, I'm with you, Alana. I could have foreseen us getting blown out, but not by that much. And yeah, TNT's right. It was an absolute reality check for the Saints. And I hope that no supporter was getting to, because again, if you look at, I say this almost every week, but if you look at post buy the results that have happened and you average them out, it's probably where you expect to be, an average but like a good but not great team, like a team that finishes around 10th. Do we deserve to be 14th? Probably after the first half of the year, and certainly after that, yes. But realistically, like we're probably better than that, but we're also not great. So it's just where we are. It's just like is what it is. Yeah, I don't really have much to say, Alana. It's just at this point of the season, you just bring on 2025 because you know that if you win too many games, and I commented during the game something along the lines of Ross Lyon knew that if we won this game that we'd jump Gold Coast into 13th, and it's strategic tanking, so another RTB masterclass. And there's that element to it. Obviously, you don't lose by 85 points on purpose. Um, but yeah, it's just where we're at. It's just emblematic of where we're at. Maybe not that game in isolation, but combine that with the last couple of weeks' results, and that's just where we are. Just an average football club.
Yeah, sadly. I mean, yeah, I guess it shows where we've got to go, and I guess it taught us a few lessons of, that's where we want to be and the difference. So yeah, I mean, Brisbane are in red hot form. I do think they'll be the premiers this year. I think they're going to be very hard to beat. But are they an 85-point better side than us at home? I don't know. Like, did we just catch them on a really good day and us on a really bad day? I hope so. I hope if we played them again, I'm not saying we would beat them by any means, but, I'd hope it would be a lot more competitive. And I just can't believe how much they beat us in contested ball. Like, that had been our strong suit the last sort of month, and they creamed us. So we were just not even close to it. So yeah, that was probably the most disappointing and surprising for me. I mean, like they're a hard, tough team, but to lose by that much, I think like 45, something around the 45 mark deficit in contested possessions, that's just a shellacking. Yeah, I'm speechless about that.
Yeah, I've said this a couple of times. Center clearances are sort of random because it's harder to put yourself in a position, harder to read the bounce and where the tap's going. In terms of and they beat us in that regard. So I never really look at center. I always try and differentiate between center clearances and stoppage clearances and possessions around those stoppages. They not only whacked us in center clearances, they beat us a lot in stoppage clearances as well, and that really goes to show that our contested ball use is not good. They didn't even rely heavily on Josh Dunkley. Obviously, Lockie Neal had. I'm looking at it now. 11 stoppage clearances. Hugh McCluggage 6.
Yeah.
Oscar McInerney had 3 himself, and Josh Dunkley only had 4. So they didn't even have guys firing, and the highest that we had was Philippou with 4, and he was a dab guy. Philippou was one of the bright spots, an otherwise disappointing game. But to
Yep.
be dominated by that much, just goes to show. Yeah, you're right, Alana. We just got absolutely pantsed in the centre.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we can see, and it's a hard one because now we got to play like Richmond, who are just nobodies this year essentially. So you'd almost rather us play like a Geelong next just to see how we bounce back, because I feel like we're not going to get much out of Richmond. Like if we beat them, it's sort of like, well, so we should. So I guess my thing would be to come out and absolutely smash them and say, you know what, that's not what we stand for. That was an exception. We were not at our best, and that is not us anymore. And I want us to come out and absolutely tear Richmond apart and just show like that's not us. So yeah, that's how I hope we come out. But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because Richmond, like that was the team that you wanted. Like Brisbane is the team that's most in form. I mean, you can make a case that the Bulldogs or GWS are more in form, but it's hard to go past Brisbane have won 5 in a row, and in the manner that they cooked us. Alana, it's these games where you mentioned earlier that it's probably a combination of us being shit and Brisbane being really, really good. And yeah, it's always in these types of games where it's always 50-50. But if you had to go 51-49, which one would you say would be the reason?
I just don't think we showed up. I mean, you can blame the midfield because they were absolutely pantsed, and I think that was one of the main areas where we lost it. But all around the ground, like even sort of contests in the air, the way they just read the ball going to ground, it was like we were like completely outnumbered. It's like they had 5 extra players on the ground. Like we were just nowhere near it, behind them, chasing the whole game. So yeah, I'd probably say as a collective, we just like our pressure has been so good, and we could not. Honestly, it was like watching men play boys. Like if you told me that was our not even Rezzies, like our seconds team that came out, like I would have believed you, because there was just no, like, yeah, we touched on Filippo was probably the shining light for me. I thought he was really, really good signs again. He was able to win his own footy at times and have some composure and at least get the ball to our advantage. But yeah, I think as a whole, I don't know, like I said, did they all have the flu? Like that's what it looked like.
Yeah, I was actually driving from Sydney the morning of the game, and dealing with Sydney traffic was more enjoyable than watching the game, I think. So that just speaks volumes about how the game was. Chris, this is a great question. I do not know. But we sorely miss. I think this game is one of those that shows how much we miss Brad Crouch. I do have an inkling that he'll be retiring at the end of the season. I think that's probably what's best for him. Unfortunately, just because he can't get his knee right, and yeah, obviously, if you can't, it's affecting him in a non-footy capacity, and that's obviously much more important than footy. If you can't, walk without pain. That being said, I can't live without pain because I am a St Kilda supporter. So what about me? And yeah, Hunter Clark. Yeah, CMAC brings a good point. Hunter Clark also I wanted to raise. Missed his skill because the ball usage was quite poor. I thought Wangani Millera, whose fans laud him for his good ball usage, he was pretty poor on the weekend. I didn't think he was quite below his usual standard.
Yeah, especially after the
That
week
being said, there
before.
were a lot of people who were below their usual standard.
Yeah, he had a lot of mates, but yeah, it was definitely a strange game for him. Like you don't expect to see that from him. He had a lot of clangers, but yeah, I just think their pressure was immense. Like our backline at times was just like, yeah, this Brisbane team's ferocious, and we just like couldn't get out of jail like we have on occasion. And I just felt like we couldn't utilize anyone. Like we didn't seem to look for Wood. I don't know if he was playing a different role, but he's normally our sort of get out of jail out of the back line, and there was just none of that. There was just none of our normal system. We were having to throw like everyone we could think of in the middle. Like, Hill was in there at times, Sinclair, Owens, like we've been wanting, but just all these sort of random guys put through because we were just like, got to try this, got to try that. Like just nothing was working. So yeah, it was just a shambles all round, and I don't know. Hopefully, we can just learn some lessons from it. That's all I'll say. And that's sort of the benchmark. That's where we need to be.
Yeah. I'm not sure about not using Mason Wood because he had 7 clangers throughout the game, so he was. I
Yeah.
thought he was involved, and that's not good. He
Mm.
was the best on ground for measuring for in
Oh,
the clangers category.
maybe
And
that's why.
second was for reference. Second was Zywang and Miller.
Mm.
So yeah, housemates sort of sharing that maybe it was something in the air. Positives, there weren't a lot of them. Josh Battle played well, but yeah, there. I wonder, Beth, if you're watching, if you still think he's going to be sticking around at the end of the season, if you think he's still torn, because he is like, why would you stay after that? Like he's gone. To put it bluntly, sorry, Beth. I know you're a huge fan of Battle and you're quite torn in that, but he's gone. But yeah, 24 disposals. I think that's doesn't quite say. I'm going to assume um, that's 13 maybe marks. No, marks seems like excessive. Maybe intercept possessions. I think possibly, and then 9. I'm really testing my ability here to sort of guess. Maybe 9 tackles
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
I probably should know this.
I
Bear
normally look at our stats after the game, but to be honest, I was just like, yeah, whatever. After that
9
game,
marks it is. And 9 marks and
Mm,
13, it must be intercept possessions. You also had
okay.
13 kicks, but I'd imagine it would have been intercept possessions.
Mm.
Yeah, so good powers of deduction there. But yeah, poor Angus McLennan making his debut in a massive loss. I'm sure that wouldn't have been fun for him.
No, but I actually thought he held his own. He was actually maybe a shining light for me. I thought, considering that type of game, like he didn't look overawed. He looked quite composed. Took a few sort of intercept marks himself. Um, got a bit annoyed with Charlie Cameron getting in for holding the ball, and then Charlie celebrating like he'd just run down bloody Nick Rewald or something. I was like, mate, calm down. He's a debutant.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I usually like Charlie Cameron as well, but that sort of rubbed me the wrong way.
yeah. I was like, I don't think he maybe realized who he's tackled. Like, it's like, settle down. Anyway, digress.
Possibly, although if I was Charlie Cameron and I'm running down a St Kilda player at the moment, unless his name's like Jack Steele or Jack Sinclair, I'm thinking, who is this guy?
Yeah.
We're a bunch of nobodies at the moment. Um, the other positives, Filippo, I thought did pretty well. Zach Jones. If anyone criticises Zach Jones, I would like to speak with you because I thought he was one of the best on ground for us, and I really don't get the Zach Jones slander because he did this kick inside forward. Was it? I think it might have
To
been the
memory.
first goal of the game. Was it the first goal for us?
Yeah, I think it was because I think Membry kicked our first goal, and I'm pretty sure Zach got it to him. So
Yeah,
yeah.
there wasn't that many goals, so maybe we should have kept better track of them. But Zach did this beautiful step through, not step through, side step, and then delivered inside 50. That was just perfect delivery, and he was pretty good with his ball use all game. Steele was pretty poor with his ball use. Other positives, I thought Caminiti and Owens fought
Mhm,
despite not getting much service. I thought Membry was okay.
mhm.
Um, Higgins and Butler went missing. Sharman couldn't back it up. Um, who else did? Callum Wilkie had a very uncharacteristic bad game. He never gets beaten in one-on-ones and got beaten twice in the first quarter. So that was quite weird from the accountant.
Yeah, but I mean, oh god, some of their entries though, I was just like, what do you do? Like they were just bullet passes. If Caminiti, I mean, if Wilkie can't get to him, like who can? Like that was just so annoying because it was just Brisbane were just too good, basically. But yeah, I thought Stocker, someone mentioned him earlier, and I actually thought he tried his guts out to me. And like he was really he did play on Rayner at times, and I did see him trying to get like under his skin, which early on I thought, oh, this is going to be good, but unfortunately there just weren't many behind him. And I thought Steele like started really well the first 5 minutes, like he was tackling like a bull, and I was just like, oh, Steele's ready to go here, and then it just. I don't know, just tapered off so quick. I don't know what happened to the team, but it was like they were all just like too hard basket. See you next week.
Yeah, I think still definitely that one errant handball that I can remember that just went straight to a Brisbane player and then they kicked a goal from that. Mind you, they kicked a lot of them. It was just disappointing, really. And just after last week, it was just quite a surprise. I mean, I did expect us to lose, sure. I didn't tip us. No,
Mhm.
noted that I don't tip us most weeks. Um, whether you back that or not is up to you. That's your personal opinion. I'm tired of losing tipping comps, so I've decided
Oh,
to tip against St Kilda this year.
good.
But otherwise, yeah, like Zach Jones, look, Paddy Dow was very poor.
Mm.
I thought Jimmy Webster fought hard.
Yeah, I was sort of hoping Dow would come in and do a bit more, but yeah, just I think we did really miss Clark because he does a lot of that contested stuff that maybe goes a bit unnoticed at times. Not that he was the difference by any stretch, but he definitely would have helped us in there and maybe even complimented Dowell a little bit when he did come on. Um, yeah, I mean, I was trying to do like sort of votes at the end of the game and sort of try to rate players out of 10. And I don't think, apart from Filippo, I don't think anyone scored above 6. So that sort of says it all.
Yeah, I think Rowan Marshall did okay, but I think McInerney got the better of him. And yeah, Bonner was classic Bonner. This is an interesting talk because I wanted to bring this up last week and I forgot. Here's my opinion on aisle 29, and I know that aisle 29 does great things, and I applaud them for what they do, and shout out to Marshy, terrific bloke, and the guys in it. I think aisle 29 would be. I'll get your opinion on this, Alana, and from the audience. Having 30, I mean, how many players have we used this year? 30? Having 30 chants and having the whole stadium remember 30 for each individual player, that's too much. You can't,
Mhm.
like, people can't do that. That's just so unreal. If you narrowed it down, like, you get the whole stadium with the Mason Wood chant, that's
Mhm.
terrific. If you had, like, your main goal, like, you had King, Membry, Sharman, maybe, like, Higgins, maybe even one for, like, Jack Steele, then you got the Mason Wood chant, that's, like, 6, 7. People would remember them, but
Yeah.
they don't because there's too many. That's so if they narrowed it down, I reckon they'd get more. I think that's my opinion, and I think that's not a criticism of them because I think they're terrific in bringing the energy. And Saints fans are notorious for not being loud, and I know that when I go to games, the aisles 30 through 35, which I've sat in the past, they're dead quiet. And then you compare it to aisle 29, and even the cheer squad is getting better. Um, but if you had only 6 or 7, much easier, and people would get on board.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to show my age here, but back in the day, I used to sit up on what was the Moorabbin wing up on level 3, and they used to have probably 6, maybe 6 chants just for like our forwards, pretty much. So you had like Fraser Gehrig, which is Jerry, Jerry, and that was great. You had like Stevie Milne walks on water, like that was awesome. Everybody knew that. And I think there was one for Brent Guerra and like Nick Rewalt superstar. So yeah, they used to go off because everybody knew them, and it was just because it was essentially just our 5, 6 key forwards that had those chants. So yeah, definitely hear what you're saying. And even once this year, I sat near aisle 29, and they actually handed out the little pamphlet with all the chants. But even that, like, it's hard after a goal to be like, oh, who was the player? What's the chant?
Yeah,
Like maybe if you go consecutive and you have that, but it's still way too much. I agree. I think like let's
you're
just
asking too much of the average Saints fan. I think you don't want to be flipping. You're right. You don't want to be flipping through a book. It's a
yeah.
pain in the ass, and also you're killing trees by printing off that much. So if you had 5 or 6, terrific.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, can't really say this on the weekend because obviously we got creamed and there's not much to cheer about. But I wish the cheer squad was a little bit more like constant because often I'll hear the opposition more than our own cheer squad with the chants. Like, I think they're better than they were maybe 5 years ago. I think they're improving, but yeah, I'd like to just have them sort of constantly getting behind the boys. Maybe the weekend is an exception because, when you've got that happening, it's very hard to be in top spirits. So I get that, but yeah,
Yeah. Too many is too. Yeah, I think Chris agrees with that. The sentiments there. And yeah, but look, the chants are great. It's just too many. It's just like you got to think about the average. Like you got to think about the average fan doesn't. And yeah, it's just too much. It's just be realistic. That's like you really think that people are going to remember 30 chants?
yeah, and some
Like
of them are like not complex, but there's a
They're
bit
quite
sort of
hard.
to 'em.
They're,
Yeah.
they're, they're difficult to remember.
But I mean, in saying all this, I love the guys on aisle 29, like you're saying. Like I completely agree. Like um what they bring, and like especially the Mason Wood chant, I love that. So I don't want to be like bagging them out because I love them. Like I think they're so good, and they're exactly what we need as Saints fans. We don't have enough like that going on at the footy. Like, and I want our players to be able to hear that. So I think that's just amazing. This is just like tips. Here are some tips.
Yeah, and we're doing it in a supportive manner because we
Absolutely.
like what they're. It's not to distract. Yeah, you're right, Alana. We're not detracting from them at all. They're great. Just ways to get even better and get people on side because we like what they're doing and we like what they bring. The umpiring in the first quarter and first half wasn't great, but what can you do? That's we would have lost anyway. Not a big deal. Unless that's just not even an unless. That's just what happens. Um, Coaches votes. We show them here. We didn't get any. That's not a
Oh, bro.
surprise. I think Lockie Neal getting off the handle just shows how much we missed Marcus Winhager because he kept him to 14, I think, or maybe 16 disposals when we played in round 22 of 2022, and was kept him very quiet. And typically does a good job on Neil or whoever is playing on. So we missed him, I think, dearly.
Yeah, I agree. And I even think we missed Burns as well, just for sort of his run and spread and support. So not that these guys would have made the differential, but might have maybe made it a little less hurtful.
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, I think I'm just questioning why you wouldn't play someone like I guess playing Garcia. If you're going to play him as the sub and have him, get splinters on his bum for sitting on the bench for 3.5 quarters. May as well play him in BFL. But I'd rather just get him to play the whole game, even if he's not ready, because we're playing damn Richmond next week. Play the kid, and I don't usually say play the kids, and we have blooded the youth. To be fair, it's a 6th debutant this year, but I don't really think that guys like Riley Bonner and maybe some of the older midfielders, could be playing. I mean, even someone like maybe probably a bit harsh to drop Jack Higgins, but because he's still like 24, 25, and he'll probably be in our next finals contending side. But give more people a go. I just think that Shoalmaker and Garcia should have been given more games. And yes, Chris, this is our lowest score ever against Brisbane. Lowest score ever against Brisbane, but not Fitzroy, because we've scored some horrendous scores before in the early 1900s.
Yeah, it was funny actually because like the night before, seeing the scores for Sydney Port Adelaide, and I was just like, "What is going on?" Like 71-1. I was almost having a bit of a chuckle, like that's terrible. And then next minute, hold my beer. The Saints just it was like 71-10 at one point, and I'm like, "Oh my god, are we going to like not even score what Sydney scored?" So that was all I cared about at the end. I was like, "Come on, let's just get past Sydney and not be the worst score of the round, please." So
Yeah, I think we should be very thankful to. That's a good point you've made, Alana. That very thankful to Sydney and Carlton and Hawthorn for losing in the fashions that they did, for taking the media pressure off us. And Hawthorn doesn't have that much media pressure, but Sydney and Carlton do. After falling away from their hot starts, particularly Sydney. So yeah, that's very lucky that we went on I think the media, and I think people underestimate how much the general public watches AFL games, and that if it's not on Channel 7, they won't watch, particularly if it's not their team. Also because streaming services like KO and Foxtel are just out of control with prices. That's my little rant for today. Actually, no, I've got one more in stock. Stay tuned. But I can see you very excited. But yes, what was I? Now I've completely forgotten what I was saying. What was I talking about?
I
Yes,
got sidetracked by your rant.
Channel 7. If you're not on Channel 7, then not many people watch you. So we're very lucky that we were 4:40. Obviously the terrific 4:40 time slot. That fun fact, we were 5-1 in last year. This year we have, to my knowledge, not played a single 4:40 game on
Yeah,
Sunday.
how
That's
bizarre.
Am I correct in saying that? I think we played some 320s, and we'll play 320 on Sunday again against Richmond, who we played last time 320 on a Sunday in gather round. But yes, not that's our. We went 5-1 last year in that time slot, but not this year. We're 0-1.
Yeah, not to be. But yeah, I'd call that the St Kilda slot, that one, because it used to be like our slot every week for as far as I can remember, those Sunday Arvo games. So yeah, I'm surprised this was my first one, our first one for the season.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I could actually not because the AFL is dragging its feet over releasing the round 24 fixture, and I understand why to an extent because last year they did release it on the Sunday of round 21, so that would have been yesterday, the equivalent. So it was the 6th of August last year. Obviously now it's the 5th and the day after Sunday of round 21, which is of course Monday. We all know the days of the week, I would hope. But I do understand that fans get critical of, silly AFL, why do they not, what about my travel plans? What about going to the games? People forget the biggest audience is always TV. So I can't blame the AFL too much for waiting until the sort of last minute to schedule it. That being said, they should have released it today. I would have accepted today as the last day. Now it's just because I think what they'll do is I think my prediction would be in round 24, the important games would be Brisbane Essendon on Friday night because I believe Essendon play Friday night. They play Sydney the week before on Friday night, so it'll be too much of they'll have too long a gap in between if they were to play other times. Port Adelaide Fremantle, I reckon, will be the Saturday night game, the Channel 7 one. That's because both teams are fighting for the top 4. They're not quite fighting for the top 8, so they're both probably locked in by then. So it's not needing to wait till the final day. And my prediction will be Hawthorn North Melbourne at 1:10 or an earlier start. I know sometimes they do that. They do away with the traditional 1:10 time slot. They do that 12:30 time slot last year. To not have overlap. 3:20 start will be, I think it'll be Carlton St Kilda because I think Carlton is in real trouble, especially if they lose next week to Hawthorn. And the last game of the round will probably be the Doggies and the Giants. That's my prediction.
That'll be interesting, that game too. So yeah, I feel like it is a challenge for the AFL because I think there's actually a lot of big games in that last round. Because even like our game, we can't make it, but it could be crucial for Carlton. And then there's a couple, like obviously Essendon that might not make it, but Brisbane are guaranteed. So you're not going to have Brisbane play on Sunday. So yeah, I do think it's a bit of a tough one for the AFL to work it out. I got more annoyed at the start of the year when like the second half of the year fixture takes forever because that's just a pain in the ass. Trying to schedule your life around your football teams near on impossible. So yeah, I can't stand that. But don't mind
maybe. Yeah, I think it's tough. I think they're trying to. I do feel a bit of pity for the AFL sometimes in trying to schedule. I do understand them releasing because it's hard to predict at the beginning of the year. Okay, come round 20, who's going to be the two most exciting teams in a finals race to watch? And it's hard because remember we had like Adelaide and Richmond on a Friday night earlier this year. It's hard to predict stuff like that's what happens. So that's the alternative. You don't. And like I said, the TV audience is always the biggest audience at the end of the day. So people that think, yes, you want to schedule your life, but also, but it is tough for interstate fans. Maybe I shouldn't say interstate. I think that word is cancelled now. I think it's non-Victorian teams is the politically correct term after the Giants CEO lost it a few weeks ago, if you remember that.
Oh, just turn it up, says the Victorian.
Yeah. Of course we would think that. Here's Jordan's rant. Alana, I don't know if you've seen, but the Channel 7 and Fox have signed a new deal in 2025 as part of the new broadcasting agreement. They've implemented mandatory diversity requirements, so they can't have white male, a limit on white males doing the commentary and part of the commentary, and trying to get more underrepresentation, more female commentators, more Indigenous commentators, that sort of thing. And there's been a lot of, well, first of all, I'll get your take on it, what you think of it.
Look, I just think it should just go to whoever the best is. And if that happens to be 3 males, it's 3 white males. Like, that's just my take. I think that you should get rewarded on being the best at what you do. That's just my take. I mean, in saying that, like, obviously if you've got 10 different programs and it's the same 10 male whatever, like, it's definitely nice to have a bit of variety and different people speak. So I can see the positives of that as well. But as long as the person can back it up and they're good at what they do. So don't just bring in some nuffy because they fit the criteria of what you're looking for. If they come in and they're whatever and they know what they're talking about and they do a good job, fine, I'm all for that, as long as that's the case. I don't like the tokenism, but if you can back it up and you've got the brains or the knowledge or whatever, I'm all for it.
Yeah, without getting too much into tokenism, there'll always be people on either side of the coin, but you do need to, there's undoubtedly been societal inequalities, and sometimes you have to go too far the other way to really overcorrect it. But yeah, it's just, shoes on the other foot now. But the point I want to make is that it's not so much about the white males, and people have been, I'm in favour of what they've done, because I don't think it's about, it's not specifically about white males, it's about white male ex-footballers that get their roles because they're footballers. Like, and we comment all the time, Alana, like every week, it's a tradition of ours now to complain about the commentary. Do we really, like, I reckon it's the same people that complain about the commentary that also complain about, why have these restrictions? Because I don't think James Brayshaw is good, and I don't think Brian Taylor's very good, so we should get rid of them. And we've seen in the past, it's predominantly ex-players that do it. It's not really people that work their way up through the media, like Matt Hill is the exception, not the rule. You got guys who were short-lived in their 7 commentary careers, like Joe Watson and Trent Cotchin, undoubtedly getting the roles because of their ex-playership. And the only ex-white player that I know, that I can think of, that I like as a footy analyst and commentator, and has consistently proven that he definitely had helped getting the role because he was an ex-footy player, but is Joey Montagna. He's done very well, and he does special comments sometimes, but he'd be a very good full-time commentator. But the main thing is just how you get the roles. It's much easier for ex-white footy players to get the roles. Someone who I think has done, like, look at Abby Holmes, for example, who had to work very hard to make it where she is. She wasn't a star in the AFLW, so even more so, it's not only you're an AFLW player, but you're an AFLW role player. She had to work her way up into the media and eventually work her way to the top, and they stick her on the boundary line. And I think she's very good. And someone like Sarah Jones, I think, is quite good, even though she supports Essendon. And Ruby Schleicher on Fox Footy has done very well as well. So I wouldn't mind if they get into the commentary teams. It's just about rewarding, rewarding people who've worked hard, but making it easier for people from traditionally unrepresented areas to make it into the footy media.
Yeah, so I guess that's the same sort of thing as what I was saying, but on, like, the flip side. So
Yes.
yeah, like, I don't think that an AFL footballer should just get gifted the job just because he played. Like, it doesn't mean he's got that sort of expertise just because he played. So yeah, I don't like just rewarding people because of that. I think it should just purely go to who's the best person for the job, regardless of your makeup,
Characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah. It should just purely be about who's best at what they do. You get the gig.
Yeah. Well, in an ideal world, that's what we'd have, but unfortunately, we've got to make some adjustments to get there one day. But anyway, that's enough about that. Let's do some squiggle before we wrap up. who we know how who won the round works. Very disappointing result. Very likely to finish in the bottom six, although that's arguably a positive. You think it's not really beneficial to jump goal. Even if we jump Gold Coast and finish 13th, we'll still be in the bottom six. But probably the lower the better at this stage of the season. As long as we show signs, doesn't really matter. And Gold Coast lost, obviously. Some people were surprised by that. I was not, because Gold Coast away from home sucks, and West Coast at home does not suck as much. I'm not sure why so many people tip Gold Coast in my footy tipping competition, but anyway. There you go. Whoops, that's not the one I wanted to bring up. Ladder predictor after round 21. So they've still got Sydney on top, but the gap is closing. Like, you wouldn't have thought. Like, it was Sydney by how much halfway through the season, and now it's Brisbane are premiership favourites, and rightly so, and they could even finish top. So there you go. And St Kilda projected to finish 14th. And this is the prediction against Richmond, 70% chance of winning. That's pretty fair.
Yeah, that's fair for mine. Gosh, if we lose to Richmond, I mean, I know like it doesn't mean anything now, but that'll be hard to take. Yeah, we can't go losing to Richmond.
Yeah. Look, I'll take losing to Richmond if it means we get to beat Carlton and knock them out of finals contention. That'd be pretty cool.
Please. I did do a ladder predictor, and I did have us doing that. So, yeah, like that. Oh, I would just love to kick them out. That would be great.
Well, hopefully that becomes a reality. We just might leave it there with that. Just a reminder to check out all the other videos on the channel if you haven't done so already. I think the podcast will be released later today on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get your podcasts, and released on YouTube. I think tomorrow, I think they usually do it. They've released them on YouTube on Tuesday, I think. And then they'll also have Jake will do Footy Abroad on Tuesday at 8 p.m. that he always does with Terry from Blue Abroad and Luke from Swoop Luke. There you have it, Saners. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night and have a great week.
Thanks.
See you guys next time.